Okay, let's take a look at the top stories making news this hour. President Trump turns up the pressure on Europe, imposing tariffs on 8 allies who sent troops to Greenland. It's part of his campaign to take over the Danish territory. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said today a tariff war over Greenland is not the way to go. In Minnesota, the Department of Justice is launching a probe into state and city officials because of their response to the surge of federal agents in the state. Sources tell CBS News subpoenas for both Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey could be issued as early as today. Mayor Frey says he's being targeted for speaking up for people in his city. Now, this comes as new CBS News polling shows a growing number of Americans are critical of the administration's immigration crackdown. 61% say ICE is being too tough when stopping and detaining people, and that's up from November. The poll also shows fewer Americans support President Trump's immigration crackdown. European Union leaders are scrambling to avert the latest tariffs President Trump has threatened in his bid to acquire Greenland. They're also considering possible retaliatory measures. Now, this weekend, President Trump said he would impose a wave of increasing tariffs on 8 EU nations, including the UK, until they allow the U.S. to buy Greenland. And joining us right now is Steve Hanke, professor of applied economics at the Johns Hopkins University, and he also served in President Reagan's Council of Economic Advisors. Professor, thank you so much for your time today. Just how effective do you think these tariff threats will be, and who are they likely to hurt the most?
Well, if you look at the premise for making the threats and wanting to get more involved with Greenland, it's kind of a phony thing, because the U.S. and NATO already control Greenland from a defense and security point of view. So they won't change much of anything. No matter what happens, the NATO and the U.S. already control the national security aspects in Greenland. So that's how effective they're going to be. They're not going to change much. One way or another, things really wouldn't change from a national security point of view. And the point here, Mugo, is that the whole premise for getting more involved with Greenland and trying to take it over, it's a false premise.
Mm. And why do you say that?
Well, because NATO is there, and the U.S. under a 1951 treaty is there. We essentially have a license to do whatever we want from a defense and national security point of view already. And we're in NATO, as well as the Danes are in NATO. So from that point of view, it's kind of a phony premise, just to start with. So Trump's gonna have to come up with some other rationale for why we want to do this, other than national security. And of course, national security is always a refuge of scoundrels anyway, as Samuel Johnson once said.
And when it comes to those tariffs, if the president does in fact impose them, who do you think they will hurt the most?
Well, they'll hurt the Americans the most, because tariffs imposed by the United States are sales taxes on Americans. And this will come back, by the way, to bite Trump and the Republicans, because this affordability issue in the United States, I think, will be a big issue in the upcoming midterm elections.
Yeah.
And if you're adding a sales tax on imports from 8 European countries, that's just more sticker shock, more affordability problems.
Yeah, that's a good point. We know President Trump is preparing to meet world and business leaders in Davos this week for the World Economic Forum. How will these tariffs impact those discussions?
Well, in a big way, because Trump will be center stage. Davos will be a Trump meeting, not a Davos meeting. So, and that's his style. He likes that. So everyone will come and kiss the king's ring in Davos. However, there'll be something significant going on. There'll be further pivoting away from the United States, because these tariffs are making enemies old friends are becoming enemies. Look at what happened last week. Prime Minister Carney was in Beijing, and what did he do? He pivoted Canada away from the United States and towards China. So the two big winners in this whole thing, and the pivots that will take place in Davos, people will be pivoting towards China and Russia. Those are the big winners. The real pivots will be more China, and I would say the Russians will just be licking their chops, because this is exactly what the Russians would like to see. They would like to see a weakening of NATO and chaos in Europe. And that's precisely what this Greenland fiasco is turning into.
Yeah, it certainly seems like we are moving toward that. Steve Hanke, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate your insights. Thank you.